Hello, welcome back to Europe in an Italian Minute. Today we want to talk about the question, is Italy a core or a periphery country in the European Union? Might seem like an obvious question. Either if you think Italy is a core country or if you think it's a periphery country, it might seem obvious. But it isn't so obvious. On the one hand, it's one of the founding members of the EU. It's the second largest industrial economy in the EU. It's part of the G7. It's along with Britain, France, and France, it has roughly the same population, and no one questions whether they're core or periphery. And Italy has always been at the table, or at the key moments in the construction of Italy. We think of the Single European Act, for instance, was negotiated in Rome, and Italy played an important role with that. So it's always been right there at the heart of Italy, and we'd think it's a core, and we would think that it has enough weight to move decisions in ways that it wants. On the other hand, in the last few years, certainly since the economic crisis has started, Italy is lumped in as a periphery. And in some ways it is peripheral if we think the heart of Europe runs through France, Germany, and Central Europe. Geographically, it's on the periphery, and we think of parts of Italy that are closer to the African continent than they are to the center of Europe and the Italian islands, not just southern Italy. So geographically, it might be peripheral. But the real question is it a peripheral economy? And Italy's economic performance since the start of the euro has pushed it more in that direction. Now, it hasn't entered into a full-blown eurozone and sovereign debt crisis like Greece or Portugal and Spain, but it has some of the same structural problems that those peripheral countries have. And that has to do with economies that haven't necessarily adjusted to the introduction of the euro. In the Italian case, a large public debt. And what that has meant is when we say it's a peripheral country, is that perhaps its economic performance hasn't given it the weight that it needs that reflects its position as perhaps a core country. And this raises an interesting point, that with the introduction of the euro, power dynamics have changed inside the euro, that economic performance suddenly becomes an important bellwether of the kind of influence member states can have that go beyond perhaps historic role and might even throw into question their historic role. And so Italy's historic role as being perhaps the core country that could also negotiate and be a good mediator is perhaps doesn't work as well. Now, further along in these European minutes, we'll talk about some other roles that Italy plays. But this positioning, being neither core nor periphery, has raised a number of serious problems that Italian decision-making has to take into consideration as it approaches its European policy. Because it's simply not enough to say, we are core, we have always been part of Europe, and so we push for Europe, so we should be at the center of the table. Italy at the heart of Europe, like we talked about previously, may no longer be as easy to convince other partners when the other partners are seeing Italy as peripheral. Now, what kind of policy responses Italy has provided to this, we'll talk about that in future meetings. Arrivederci.